Welcome everybody to the MiniMapCast. This is your weekly source of gaming news, questions and impressions from minimap.com.au. My name is Kerry Palmer, and joining me for the very first time, it's Blonde Jeremy.
It's Blonde Jeremy.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome. It's always good to have new people on the show.
Yeah, I had to get rid of that other guy. Yeah, he stank.
His brown hair was so boring.
Yeah, right. That's what they call him boring brown hair Braditich. That's what they call it. Now I'm beautiful blonde Braditich.
Beautiful blonde Braditich. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. Beautiful blonde Braditich.
Before we jump in, I need to say how funny it is every time, just for me to hold on to the opening. So we've got the scene transitions, right? We have like the stream starting, and then it'll transition into the scene that is right now. For audio listeners, we are doing a video show as well. You can catch that on twitch.tv/minimapau. The scene, which is both of us, it takes just like about 2.5 seconds for the transition to do its full loop. And Kerry also gets the stream on a delay because of the way this is set up, and there's just a little bit of fear in his eyes that I've forgotten to hit the button every single time. And unfortunately, that doesn't come through because of the nature of it going to the live stream as opposed to away from it. So only I get to see the fear in Kerry's eyes that I deliberately give him every single time.
I didn't know I was so transparent.
Just the eyelids just get a teeny bit wider every single time.
Here I am thinking I'm being chill and just like, no, Jeremy's gonna do it. It's fine. Don't bother him. It's not a big deal.
And
but
look,
also part of my brain's like, this is where I cut us in. This is when the transition needs to happen.
Yes, and part of that is the nature of just me not having a specific time my transition. I could automate all of this, so I can press one button and the audio will play and the transition will play at the same time. Yeah, but it's far more fun just to do it.
Now that I know that you're fucking with me, I can see that you're definitely not going to let that go.
Never.
I really had no idea that you could tell that was happening in my head.
Oh, very easily. Very, very easily.
I feel so see-through right now. Blonde Jeremy, when we were on the Discord earlier this week and you posted an image of your new aesthetic, it was a very confused reaction from all who reacted. Have you shown June?
No, they wouldn't have seen it just yet.
You should
make that happen.
Send it now, and then we'll see what their live reaction is.
Yeah, okay.
But like a bunch of us thought it was a filter. Like I thought it was a joke, but also you kind of posted it and then ghosted the Discord for an hour or two. Yeah. And so we're all there just sort of like hypothesizing with each other, and you're like, "What did I say?" I said something. I said, "Did you lose a bet?"
Yes. What a lovely thing to say to someone.
It was just so surprising. It was so new, it was so sudden to me. And then you were like, no bet. It's just something I wanted to do. I'm like, oh, well, great. It looks great. You look a lot like our friend Tom.
Yes, I tagged him just with the words brother.
So yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. It's a good reason to do anything just because you always wanted to,
Oh, it's not even that I always wanted to. It's I specifically didn't want to for a very, very long time, and then over the last
that's a weird reason to do things.
But then over the last 2 years, like I was for a long time, I was quite self-conscious about my hair. As I'm quite blind, getting a haircut can be quite an experience because I have to take off my glasses every time I get a haircut, so I never know what it's like until it happens. And I've had many a poor haircut. But then over the past 18 months, I've definitely just stopped caring about it in its entirety to the point where what if we just fuck it up, mate? Like, what if we just completely just change it all? To the point where I said, if I don't like my blonde after a week, I was just going to go completely bald and just regrow my hair, which will be fun.
Nice. Yes.
Because I've
never
been bald.
Nope. I'm toying with the idea of that. I've got too much hair at the moment. I haven't had a haircut in 2.5 years. It's been so long, but yeah, no, I think it's a good look, Jeremy.
Thank you. Oh.
Enough about haircuts. Let's talk about video games. This is MiniMap. I'm realizing I'm like, hang on. What are we doing again? This is the MiniMapCast is what we're doing.
That's true.
You can find us every week on minimap.com.au. You can also find us in a bunch of other places recording this, the MiniMapCast. So that goes live on every podcast service of choice. It goes live on the website. It also goes live on Twitch as we record it, usually Monday evenings, Australian time, that is. So if you want to catch us there, you can go to MiniMapAU on Twitch. We're also there on all the other socials. We've got Twitter, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, all at MiniMapAU. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/MiniMapAU if you wanted to support us monetarily. That's pretty much it. We also wanted to say thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. We've got a few things here. I'm bringing 3 different things to the table this week. It's like I'm taking the place of boring Brown Braditich, and just bringing all sorts of things to the podcast.
Boring Brown Braditich can't come to the phone right
now. But Jeremy, start us off with some more discussion on Neon White, because you spoke about it last week.
I did.
Since then, I took your recommendation to heart. I picked it up. I've played it just a couple of hours. But what more do you have to say about Neon White this week, Jeremy?
I finished it.
Oh!
Yep. I've put in, I'm just going to double check how many hours I've put into Neon White, but it's a fucking lot. Because I not only have finished it, I've also aced every level.
For those that don't know, it's like you got bronze, silver, gold, and then ace.
Yes, and there's a skill. There's
standards.
There's a tier above that, Kerry. There's a tier above ace.
Do you know what it is?
It's just it's not named. It's just like a red medal.
So I heard kind of funny talking about Neon White earlier today actually, and they were saying that there's a thing that pops up. Like, do you know how to get the red medal, or you're not sure?
I just assumed it was get there faster, is it not?
I've heard that you get a little emblem for if you had the world record on a level.
That's definitely not the case. Maybe it's
like
not
something that you've been.
I mean, like I'm in like the top 200 for a bunch of levels, but I'm not number one because I've got like a few red medals.
Okay. Fair enough.
Maybe it's like if you reached the top like percentile or something.
Yeah, or maybe it's like an author medal. Maybe you beat Ben's time.
Yeah, right. Maybe that'd be cool.
Trackmania does that, but that's their like ace medal is the author medal.
Yeah, right. So this is kind of my de facto review for it because I haven't written anything, but I've put together my final thoughts on it. I'm still playing it. I'm still going back and playing it.
You're never going to hear about Neon White ever again.
I mean, probably like I don't think I'm going to bring it up next week when I 100% the game.
Right.
There's not much more I can talk to this. I believe. So I've written some notes, just a brief little paragraph and a bit. Just to go through it, I've titled it Speedrun Heaven.
Cool, I like that.
Which is, I think, quite apt. As you know, you are doing speedruns in heaven, kind of. Not quite heaven, but you know, that's the goal. Look, having seen the main story and aced every level, I think I'm pretty comfortable giving this game a 9.5 out of 10.
Wowza.
I have no real complaints, really. I think that 95% of the levels are excellent. I don't think 100% of them are excellent, but I think 95% of them are really excellent.
Are any of the levels bad?
No, just
some of them are not terrific.
Yeah, some of them are like, yeah, that was fine, and I got the ace, and I don't really care much about this level to really bring down my time. But there are many, many levels in this game that I really love and really enjoy bringing down my time, finding those efficiencies, shaving a half a second off here, and doing like, so the process for me works as I will find an efficiency and I'll work to make that efficiency more efficient. But as I do that, more often than not, I will make a little inefficiency before and after it. And then it becomes a cascading, okay, well, let's then tighten that part up again while keeping this new efficiency I found tight to bring that time down even further. And then you find a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. This is a puzzle game in many aspects, right? This is like a puzzle game where you are managing the resource, you are managing the card resource, finding out where to slot those cards in to their little holes, and then
what?
It's like finding the right shape for these things to go in. Finding the place where to use the cards for their maximum potential, whether it's using them as a gun or burning them for their ability. Right? This is almost more than a first-person shooting game. It is a puzzle game, I think. This, like, it is all about just finding the exact right combination. Speedrunning feels exhilarating, uncomplicated, intelligent, and perfect. There is such a little barrier. Such a small barrier to getting enjoyment out of speedrunning in this game. Because it is. I think this is actually not too dissimilar to actual speedrunning in terms of it's about thinking things in different ways. It's about potentially breaking the sequence. If you can skip a section, then you're going to be rewarded with a much lower time. It is about using the cards in as many ways as you think you can use them to maximize your speed. Because it's you want to keep your maximum speed up as quickly as you can while doing the bare minimum to get by, right? So it is quite close to speedrunning you might see at AGDQ. Speaking of, that's happening at the moment, and I didn't check if Neon White is on there, but I really hope it is. It might be too soon. It might be just too soon because they're probably organized months in advance.
SGDQ at the moment, right?
Yes, it is. First in-person one in a very long time.
Oh, is it actually?
Yep.
No way.
Which is exciting.
Kind of scary.
I'm really excited for it because GDQ's got such a vibe to it. It's got such a feeling to having the audience live in person. Like
I think in terms of an event, it's the best thing for it. But
Oh yeah.
It's it's like anything at the moment. It's like it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Neon White is not here. I just Control F'd it and can't see it.
Yeah, that's not surprising. It's a bit early.
I think submissions for this closed like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
SGDQ.
That was my thinking too. The 5% of levels that I don't think are excellent are still really good levels, but a lot of them sort of do things that are just not quite so fun to redo over and over again. For example, there are some levels where there's a lot of falling or a lot of like almost waiting around a little bit. And part of that is like maybe I'm not thinking in the right way to get to the end faster, but I think that specifically the levels where you're going down like down vertically for a majority of it, there's a lot of gliding when there's no stomp card available. And that's not quite as fun because there's a level of, the minimum this is gonna take is my fall speed, which is it's just not as fun to revisit.
It's pretty slow. You float down.
Yeah. The story ended up being really fun. What I was thinking was probably the weakest part of the game is really not very weak at all. It ended up being, as opposed to a neutral, which is what I was feeling about it last week, it has now come around to being a positive for the game. I'm glad the story is in it. I enjoyed the characters quite a lot. The character dynamics and moments really shined towards the end. There's a lot of really nice moments between these characters. Not nice as in like they're happy moments, but like there were some really interesting perspectives that there's a lot of nuance to the story towards the end, which is good because at the beginning it's a very anime style story. Everything's very over the top. It's like
what the
right. And they still have that, but they have some more grounded moments in the story later on. That was it caught me off guard. Frankly, it was good to see. I'm glad it was there. And I felt like it helped elevate the story in its entirety to have these genuine, thoughtful moments as opposed to a lot of like intense visceral reactions 100% of the time, but while still being in character. As well as I think you don't quite get it in the first few chapters of the game because it seems so far away relative to where you are, but the clock counting down at the end of every chapter like really starts to become kind of like an intense thing. Like it feels like this impending thing that you got to work against, which really like it helped the story. It's a really good choice to have that. I love impending time in a story, like we got to do this before XYZ because otherwise nothing will work, right? Like the great stakes. Of course, we know this, but the art direction is completely nuts. Like it is just like so fucking good. The character design is really good. The character design is striking. The level design is like so, like the level design is so good, but it's like lifted all the way up with this really like extravagant, regal like design of the world. But like later on, it's not all like that. Like they change the style of the levels that you're in, so you feel like you're in different locations. It's not just
it's sort of like going through, not Abstergo, going through Aperture Labs.
Not quite. No, it's more biblical than that. Like you're going to. I won't spoil like
I just
where
meant
it
how
is,
like Aperture is so like pristine, and then you get towards the end of that game and you start breaking through, and all of a sudden you're using those same portal mechanics inside of a different setting to what you had been before.
Yeah, kind of. There are some areas which do feel a lot more broken down, similar to where like Aperture does in Portal 2. But yeah, you start to see some less perfect areas that still feel like they're in the same world, and are really interesting to be in. And there's one level in particular, which is a non-combat level, which is like got this really like kind of like freaky, eerie, oppressive music. And there's like this big building at the end, and there's something inside of it that's very important, which I'm not going to spoil what it is. But the moment you step foot into the building, like the music cuts.
Oh.
And it like and you see like this like horrific thing inside the building, and it's like fuck, like hey, like you nailed that, like you got me. Which was really cool. There's also a part in the game pretty early on where White is talking to Neon Yellow, and he specifically says the phrase, the vibes are immaculate, when talking about the area that he's in. And I just kind of think that's the perfect descriptor for the whole game. The vibes, like they are immaculate in this game. Everything about it just fucking hits. It all comes together. Immaculate. This fucking crescendo of reflective heaven. Like it's fucking tight. And finally, I just think like the leaderboards are just so good to have there for every single level. The idea of not being able to see the leaderboard until you get an ace score is really intelligent, because it's like, don't even worry about it until you get this score, right? But like the global
leaderboard, right?
Any leaderboards, I believe. I'm
pretty sure I could see the friend ones prior.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. But the global leaderboard not showing up until you get aces, very intelligent, because why would you?
Can I just jump on that? Sorry to derail you.
Go for it.
Do you get any sort of motivation from the global leaderboards in this game and in general?
Or when I'm in the top 200, I do.
Okay, fair enough. I feel like I always find a global leaderboard is so like contextless, if you know what I mean. Like, yes. It's like, oh, you're 1000th. It's like, okay. I don't know how far or low that is. I don't know how much more work it's going to take. I don't know how many people on a Steam leaderboard list have cheated to get like 0.1 seconds. Like
there are plenty of those. Not as many in the early levels, thankfully. So I think they're at least actively looking at them to try and keep them legitimate as possible. The way I think about global leaderboards is if I am, say, in, let's say, 1,500th place, which is not very close to the top, I will then look at 1 and see the actual time difference between me and them. Because if the time difference is like 6 seconds, then there's a bit that I'm missing.
Right. Yes, totally.
There's
a skip, there's a optimization.
Yes. But if there is, say, a 10th of a second difference, then it's all about me getting better. Right? It's all about what can I do that they haven't thought of? Mm-hmm. That's where the puzzle is for me. So I think that looking at the 5 above and 5 below you for a global leaderboard is useless. But looking at 300 above, 300 below, not even 300 below, 300 above, that is when it's useful to see what is that, what is actually splitting us? And if it's not a lot, then I can reach it. But if it is a lot, then I'm missing something, and what am I missing?
Right. Sure. Okay, cool.
I think the only thing that this game is missing for me personally is a way to compete with my friends more directly. And I don't mean play in the same instance, but I either want to see either their ghost, or I want to see maybe... So Astrobot has got this really great feature where if you do the speedrunning levels in the PS5 Astrobot game and you beat someone's score, you get a notification on your console to say, hey, that motherfucker went faster than you. And then
and you can launch directly into the app.
Click of a button, you're in the level, right? Which is fucking nuts. Now, there's a lot of levels in this game. I think there's probably 130, maybe more.
Which is ridiculous, especially considering how high quality they are based on your judgment on them.
Yeah, it's nuts. Probably about 110 or 115 have got leaderboards. Some of them don't, because some of them are not
story levels.
Yeah. I want a way to get a notification when it's Ollie. It's just Ollie at the moment. Beats my score. Because I spent an entire play session beating every single one of his scores. I went through meticulously into every single level, checked the score. If he had a faster time than me, then I stayed in that level until I beat him. And that includes the level... I
pulled this up before, Jeremy. There's a bit before where you said, my hand fucking hurts. I played this level for about 90 minutes with a screenshot. And the level... it's a 9-second level. Ollie's got 9.042, and then you brought it down to 8.963, and you worked on that for 90 minutes.
I cannot begin to tell you how happy I was. What time was that message, Kerry? Is there a
it doesn't tell me off the bat.
Because I spent... That was the final thing I did before I turned off my computer that day, I believe. Mm-hmm. That was painful. I came away...
Quarter to midnight.
Really good use of my time. That was a lot. That was a fucking lot of work. I brought it down a ton. Sorry, what were the 2 times?
It was 9.0 something.
Uh-huh.
And you brought it to 8.963.
Hell yeah.
You shaved off we're talking tenths of a second.
Because I got 2. I got close to his score, and I was 2/100ths of a second below him.
Whoa!
And I was furious.
Yes.
This game is all about ascending to heaven and stuff and being chosen by angels. I wanted to kill God when that happened. The fire of the devil flowed through me, and I speed ran as fast and as hard as I fucking could.
Mm-hmm. You played the best neon white of your life.
Oh, yeah.
You see, that's funny. If I'd been in that same situation, I think I would have been annoyed, but if it had taken every part of me to get that close, I don't know if I would have been able to keep going.
But
because we had that moment when I was playing through the first chapter, and because it had been a while since you and Ollie had been playing the first chapter, I could
you beat a bunch of my times.
I could bop a lot of your times at that point because neither of you had really optimized them super hard.
No.
And so that was good for me. That was an achievable challenge. I could work on them. And then I got to 110, which is the longest level of the chapter. And I was working to get past, I think it was your score. It was your score. I think Ollie had a 28 and you had like a 26.
Yeah.
And I was working it for about 25 minutes and seeing the thing go, and I'm watching it, I'm like, hang on, that says 24 now. And I go to the Discord, I'm like, did you just bop your own time by like so much? And I was really struggling to get to where you were.
And then what did I say? And I brought it down by like 6 seconds or something.
Eventually, yeah. I said, whoa, did you just get that 25 on 110? And then I'm like, how did you do it? I was desperately trying to reach your 25, and you went and got a 24, you bastard. And I said, I really don't know where you're finding those extra 2 seconds. Well done. And for that, I had to give up at that point, because it's like, I don't think I'm getting anywhere here. I was just doing it again and again.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to do.
I don't think you should care about speedrunning. Like, I don't think you should
like
care
that
about...
hard.
Well, like, I don't think you should be that competitive until you beat, like, let's say 4 chapters, I think. Go through them, get a bunch of golds, get a bunch of aces, get a real feel for the mechanics, and then go back to the levels that you really enjoyed.
Right.
And then learn those paths, learn the mechanics. Because I like beat the game and went back and got a bunch of aces, and I'm like still learning things. Like I'm still learning.
Okay.
Like the purple one, for example, that shoots out the bomb that explodes.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the best way to launch myself further out of those bombs.
That one is weird. I didn't feel comfortable like using that launch that much, honestly.
Yeah, and like I'm still learning better and better ways to use it, but it's fun. Yeah, this is currently my game of the year.
Wow. I'm sorry, Vampire Survivors.
I know. I'm sorry, Elden Ring.
I don't think Elden Ring was ever going to make the top of your list this year.
Oh, with everything else falling out of this year, I was like, it's still mine.
I mean, from the week after we got it, from the week after you started playing it, thinking of how you've been feeling about that game and interacting with it from that point, like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's...
Oh, I still really like that game. I just don't love it. I just really like it.
Yeah, I get that. It's interesting. I feel like Elden Ring is maybe the best game this year, but maybe it's not my favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know. I do know exactly what you mean.
It's funny. It is masterful, but it is not. It doesn't sit there with. It's not.
It hasn't hit.
Yeah.
It hit at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it hasn't. It doesn't stayed.
It's fascinating. That'll be interesting to see if that feeling crystallizes in the next 6 months. Yeah, it's a good point with Neon White, with just getting some good times and then moving on, because like it was good going through and bopping your times at that point when they weren't optimized. But when you blew me out of the water on that last mission, and I'd been going over and over it for ages, and I went over and over it for ages more, and I just couldn't move the needle.
Yeah.
I put it down and made dinner, and I haven't been back to the game since. So, like, that says something. I mean, I've also been trying to do a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a good point. And I have been thinking to myself, I do want to play it. I was enjoying just discovering it and learning each level and finding the presents and all that. So there is still plenty to enjoy.
I still want the decided, like, hey, these are the 10 best levels. These are the ones you should speedrun against your friends. Like, I want like that in a playlist almost. I want like 10 of the 10 best levels that you can compete with without having to go through, like, go to the campaign and then go to the 13 sub chapters and then have a look at the levels inside of that.
Check each time.
Yeah, like I want like these are the 10. kind of ultimate levels.
Do you think we'll get DLC?
So I was reading an interview with Ben Esposito on goombastomp.com. Just a funny
Heck, man, he sure do.
It's a funny name. I think it was Goomba Stomp. Which is a website that I'd never heard of before today, but I think that's a good name for a website. It's Nintendo news. Anyway, I don't know if we'll get DLC. As far as I'm aware, the studio that worked on this with Ben Esposito, it was just like a one-time thing.
Oh, they're done now.
Yeah, like right. the job is done, the game is out. But I think that this game is popular enough that like never say never. I think the property is cool and like the property is quite popular. I think he wants to do an anime with it. Turns out Ben Esposito does a lot of things. He does like DJing as well, and like
really,
yeah, he does like tons of jobs.
So he's one of those people.
Yeah, one of those fucking talented people, huh?
He's like an Alana.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm excited to get back to it. How much more do you think you're going to revisit and improve and bop?
So currently, I've beaten the story. There is a way to get the ending of the game, and there's like a true ending for 100%ing the game. So I'm currently going back, getting all the presents, going through all of the side missions, and then I will go back, do the final ending, and I reckon that's where I'll call it, aside from when I get added in Discord from Ollie or someone being like, "Hey, I beat your time."
Yeah, I'm hoping I can do that. At least sometimes. I'm hoping I can have that joy. Something else we played in this last week, Jeremy, was the newly free-to-play Fall Guys.
The Fall Guys.
Previously on PlayStation Plus, and then took forever to come to Switch. It only just came to Switch, and then took forever to come to Xbox. It is now free to play. You don't have to buy it. You can just jump in and play. This is interesting. It's been out for what, like a year? A bit more now. Was that 2020 when it came out? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. It's been out for a while. The team got bought out by Epic, so they've got a bit more of a content creation team going into it. They've been coming in with trailers. I feel like the biggest thing I've heard about Fall Guys in the last year has been every 2 months when it's like, oh, Sonic is coming to Fall Guys. Among Us is coming to Fall Guys. Like, just that kind of thing.
Ratchet and Clank, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. But, like, we were saying at some point over the last weekend when we were playing, like, we don't know anyone who's playing it, really. We don't know anyone who's talking about it, who's, like, deep into it, who's really vibing it or whatever. Like, It kind of came, and then it stayed for people, and people come and go from it. But it didn't have a super amount of staying power like
Among Us, for example.
Like Among Us or Fortnite. I was quite interested in Fall Guys when it came out, and so was Sam. Sam was like, "Oh, I really want to play it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool. It's like $35." And so then I was like, "Are we both going to spend $35 to play this game?" And we watched a bunch of videos on it. And so then that issue of you being like, there's an issue that comes with Fall Guys where you can start to become quite familiar with certain like game types that they give you. Because it's random every time, but also you're always at the start of the round, so you get familiar with the qualifiers and less familiar with the other ones, and sometimes you're just unlucky and you don't get random games that maybe are your favorites, or maybe you just want more variety. And so we watched a bunch of videos, and we sort of knew a lot of the games, especially back then when it had way less content. And it just sort of, there wasn't much reason for us to get in. But when it was free to play, Sam could download it on their computer, I downloaded it on mine, we all jumped in. I had so much fucking fun with this game over the last... It was just Friday and Saturday that we played.
Yeah.
I had way more fun than I thought I would, because like I've said like 4 times now, in lieu of getting the game, we watched it a lot when it came out.
Yeah.
And so I figured there wasn't going to be that much for me to get from this, because I'd like seen it, because I like got it. I had so much fucking fun playing this game, Jeremy. And I think... Go on.
You want to know how I knew that this game had you in a way?
Sure. Yes.
So there were 2 distinct moments.
Okay. Go on.
Sorry, do you want to predict one of them?
I was just about to bring up one of the final rounds that we were in.
You tell your story, and I'll tell you my predictions after.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so like one of the first rounds we played was Sam, Ollie, Jeremy, and I. And it's fun playing with Sam, and Sam's like, oh, I don't want to drag you guys down. And it's like, well, too bad. Even if you do, that's fine. We're here to have fun. Stop worrying about it.
Yeah, video games.
And we got to the final round, which was the round where the two spinners are going at the same time, and you have to jump across the one going across the bottom, but not get wiped off. And then the floor falls away progressively as well, so it gets harder and harder. And I think it was Ollie, Jeremy, and I left, and a few stragglers, and then the stragglers were gone, and it was just Ollie, Jeremy, and I. So the team had won it. And in this mode, it's get your squad through. It's the squads mode. So we'd won basically, and we were just playing the game at that point. And so I just grabbed Jeremy because Ollie was over there on his own playing the game, and I just held on to him to try and murder him as quickly as possible. So I just couldn't help it.
So angry.
It was so funny. I was inspired. But yeah, that was one of that had me laughing for minutes. What was the moment that you're thinking of?
So there were two moments when I realized that this game had you. One was like, you're like, do I buy the battle pass? And I'm like, no, Kerry, like wait until you play a bit more before you buy the battle pass. You knucklehead.
Day one of the battle pass. Yeah. I mean, we were all default beans, except for you, Jeremy, because you'd played it a bit more than us previously, and you had like Amazon integration stuff.
I haven't even got cross progression turned on because I'd have to download the game, log into my Epic account on my PlayStation, and like link it that way, which I don't care enough to do.
Right, fair enough.
So yeah. Plus, I think at this point I've probably got more progression on this character anyway because I didn't get super far on the other one.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, like we were all default beans, you know. We all had like very similar, just pattern paint differences and like the punk cuffs that you got for free.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of Ezios running around because that's the first thing you get on the battle pass this season.
The other way I knew this game had you was when everybody stopped and you kept playing.
Yeah.
And that's not like an indictment, but like I remember you were just playing solo, and I was like, oh, like this is like Kerry just wants to keep that high, huh?
It scratches an itch, Jeremy. I don't do that with nearly anything. I do that with Apex like once a year. I hardly did it with PUBG because it's too stressful. Like I don't do that with multiplayer games with hardly anything. I did a bit with Halo.
Yeah, I remember you doing it with Halo when it first came out.
Yeah, no, that was something about it. Turns out this game's fun. It's got its issues, right? We felt the repetition of the modes really quickly. Not to the point where we're like, oh fuck, but like, oh, we're doing this one again, or like every time it's loading the map, it gives you like a montage. It gives you of stills of the different levels it could be, and it's like, I've seen this game before. Why haven't we gotten any games like this? Like the ones where it rolls around. It took us like 4 hours of gameplay to get one round of the rolling turbine things.
Yeah, like there's a lot of them that... There's none of them that I'm like, oh, this one's bad. And there's none of them that I'm like, I don't want to play this one. But I think that's because by this point, they've sort of like made them all fun enough. And plus, like when you've got like 100 people running around, like you're going to... And they're all physics-based. Like you're going to just... It's different every time. But yeah, I do feel like here's the thing. So when back in the old days, when the iPod was first coming out, Apple introduced the shuffle feature for iPods.
Yes,
it had been around a lot of other audio, music programs before, but the shuffle on the iPod was different because it's a learning algorithm, similar with Spotify. But Spotify didn't get there initially. I don't know if you remember back in the days of the early teens, Spotify's shuffle was fucked. It sucked. It was never good. Yeah. It's gotten way better. Because shuffle ain't actually shuffle. Shuffle is a random assortment, but not completely random.
Is that true even on the old iPods?
Apple started to work shuffle. They massaged shuffle to not make you get whiplash every single song.
Wow, I didn't know that.
They still changed it up. Like it's still semi-random, but it's not like it's not just like tonal wham 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 Sinatra, Beethoven, Pink Floyd, one after, like, right? It's, that's because random is not what people want.
Yep.
No one wants random. I want the illusion of random, but I want what's chosen. Algorithmically authored, I think, is a good way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Conditional.
That sounded so wise. I feel like that should go on your tombstone.
Algorithmically authored.
No. Before that, where you're like, I want random, but I want what's chosen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get that problem here with Fall Guys, and each server is different people and different things. As Sam says, I want the illusion of random is my new life motto in chat. Like every different time you're in with different people and different servers, and they've all played different games to you, and you've been playing different games that night. Like it just kind of it happens the way it happens. I don't know how you balance that out.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I'm sure they're working on it because it's a common issue with this game.
And now they've got new lords and overlords in Epic Games. They've got a whole lot more money put into it.
And they've expanded like twice or three times the size of what they were.
Like it's you can see that the game is going to change dramatically over the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. But yeah, I just had a blast. It was fun playing stuff with Ollie's partner Jane as well, and we would just all of us could jump in. We could all get something out of it. Like I don't know. It was great. It was cool seeing the new modes. It was fun laughing, like finishing the round and then watching random characters just absolutely fuck up over and over.
Yeah, just eating shit over and over again. It's hilarious.
It's just a nice Schadenfreude generating moment. A moment generator rather in that game. And then there was this final round I got to. Oh, sorry, go on.
No. This is what. This is the. Yep.
So there was this final round I got to. I think this is when everyone went to bed except you and I, Jeremy.
Yeah.
And it's this newer round from their winter selection of games, where there's this final round and you're on a big disc platform. It's made up of like 40 different sections.
Hexagons.
And there's this is another round. That's a good point. Okay, I'm going to talk about the hexagon one. I'll do that now.
All right.
So a different one. The hexagon is that's been in there forever.
Yeah.
And you've got different, what did you say? It's like Minecraft spleef.
Yeah.
Where when you run across these hexagon tiles, they crack and they fade away, like within a second after you stand on them. And so there's the finalists that are all running around, and the last one that's not in the goo at the bottom wins. And that one's great. When we were playing, it was just Jeremy and I. It broke for me, and most of the hexes didn't fade away for me. So I could just stand on, what would happen is the hexes would, when you stand on them, they sort of like go white and then they just disappear. And a lot of the hexes would go white and then stay. And so there was a crisscross of probably like 60% of the hexes stayed all the way down for me. And then there were some gaps and some ones that weren't popped yet. And so I was like,
you cheated.
I didn't cheat. The game broke.
Game broke.
But you were egging me on a bit too. I was like, I think I should jump off, and you were like, no, win, Kerry.
Yeah, no, I was the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah, but after you were the devil on my shoulder, once I won, you were like, you're gonna get so many reports, and you just ruined so many 12-year-olds' evenings.
Yeah,
you're just a little shit stirrer.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not getting reported.
Game was, I still don't know if I got reported.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that was very silly. Cool that I won, but like,
well, you won.
Also, like, did I really win? If I cheated, I didn't cheat. But if I cheated the game,
you cheated with
Fall Guys. I didn't cheat. My game was broken, and then I was encouraged.
I just got a party invite from Jane to play Fall Guys.
Me too. I told them we were recording the pod. That's all right. But yeah, my game was totally busted. When we got out of that, like the UI elements weren't loading in. Like as they were fading in from like 0% opacity to like 100%. They'd already go to like 20%. Like they were like ghosts of UI on the screen. And then when I tried to quit, all of the things I was hovering over would like fade in and then like all be highlighted at once and then like go invisible. Like everything was broken.
Yeah.
But then there was another one I did that was just me at the end of it in the last round, and so this was this winter one I was describing where you're on a big disc platform. It's made up of like 60 segments, and around the map are these little spawning locations, and they're these little bombs with faces that when you pick them up, like a countdown timer starts, and then you throw it, and it explodes, and just it's like a concussion grenade, right? It just that doesn't make any sense. It's a shockwave grenade kind of a deal.
It's a grenade,
and yeah, it's a kid friendly grenade.
Yeah.
And so the platform starts falling away chunk by chunk until it becomes really small. But something that was my favorite thing to do on that level is some people would just hoard, like they'd stand on a spot once it was like isolated from the rest of the map, and just wait for the bombs to spawn, pick them up and throw them at people from safety.
Yeah.
And so it was from this and other people and anyone else as well. Anyone who was like sort of hoarding or like was the only one left, I would just run up to them and like I would just bother them the whole time. I'd grab them. I'd grab the bombs they were picking up. I'd grab the bombs they threw at me and throw them back. I'd be like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Go on, you got to stay here. What are we going to do together? Here, I'll hold you. What are we going to do?" I just bother them the whole time. And then there was this final round. Everyone else was gone. It was me and one other person, and I just latched on. And I just held this bastard so tight for minutes. And I'm like, come on, where are we going to go? You going to let go? Am I going to let go? What are we going to do? I've just bullied this guy. And slowly, you can move just slightly. And so it got to the point where this person just held on to me too, because he had nothing. There was no other recourse. And I was slowly moving him around the map to the point I got him off the edge. And he let go a few times, and I tried to let go, and it never quite worked. And eventually, I think he pulled me off, but he fell first. And so I was that little bit above the water.
Yeah.
And it was just minutes of me. I was bullying this guy.
You Kirby'd him.
What?
You Super Smash Brothers Kirby'd him. You know when did you ever play Melee, or I think Brawl did it as well, where you as Kirby, you inhale someone and just jump off the edge, and it always killed them first?
I never did that, but now that you said that, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
There's this video I watched of Tio playing Smash, where he plays as Bowser, where he does this side grab, which grabs them, and then Bowser flies up and smashes onto the ground.
Yeah,
and you always grab just one specific person and fly off the map with them.
But it's like a body slam too, so it's like under Bowser, so you always get the kill first.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so funny. I just, it felt really mean, but it was just so funny.
It's a game.
Sam has written in the chat, huge little brother energy, which, when you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
This game's so good. I didn't think we'd like it as much as we did.
I'm glad we do.
But we did. Me too. I'm sad we're not playing right now with Ollie and Jane. I got a couple other things here. Jeremy, I finally finished yesterday Guardians of the Galaxy.
Really?
I did. I finished it.
That's surprising.
Why's that?
I just didn't know you had been playing it recently.
Well, that's why I was reluctant to get onto Neon White, because I was like, I really want to finish Guardians. We're close to the end of Persona. I haven't touched Persona in a couple of weeks. We're literally at the final boss of the first main game in Persona. I haven't got there because we need a couple of hours of time to do that.
Sure.
And so I was like, I want to get to Guardians. I want to get to Persona before I really get into anything. I want to get to Horizon, but I have to finish these two first. So I finished Guardians. I think this game's gameplay is its weakest point.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say it's bad. I think it's bland.
Yeah.
It's barely complex enough to not stop me from playing. But it's pretty basic and it's not that interesting overall. It's fine.
Yeah, it's inoffensive. It is completely out of the way. I that being said, I enjoy the huddles a lot.
You see, I don't really.
Oh.
I think it's an interesting idea. You know, Star-Lord's like, all right, guys, huddle up, and then you have to listen to how they're feeling as they rock up, and then you respond to them with the right message. There's a right and a wrong answer to respond to them with based on what they've said.
Yeah.
And I thought the Star-Lord's responses either way were always awful. I didn't like anything he had to say in response to them, and so I didn't believe in them. Half the time I got it wrong, even though I thought I picked the right thing. Like I just didn't.
Right, I always got it right. Like I always was like, oh, like what are we gonna do? And then I choose the right one. I'm like, fuck yeah! And then you know, I loved it. I thought it was great, and I enjoyed the huddles every time. That's funny.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, don't let me stop you. You know.
Yeah.
But that being said, I enjoy the exploration gameplay. I enjoy the like dialogue choices that you get. I enjoy the little telltale moments of, you know, you convinced the Nova Corps to do this, or you didn't pay your fine. Like,
yeah,
I like all of those. I like those things in how they do inform the story, but it isn't a Telltale game. So it's just for those moments where they're like, oh, hey, Cosmo's back because you convinced him to do this back in Chapter 7. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Kind of thanks for making it so overt. I actually kind of appreciated it.
Yep. Yep.
It wasn't a whole game based on that.
Yes. Yeah, it was like, it was the story you played, but it wasn't the point of the game.
Totally. This game, I still recommend, really, because I actually think it's a fantastic story. I think it's actually, and it didn't hook me immediately, and I should probably go back and play the first few chapters, I think. But I think it's a wonderful story. Like, legitimately fantastic.
I completely agree. The story is like, oh, this is like are you on par with the movies? I think you're on par with the movies. I enjoy you as much as the movie. It's a much longer story, so it's hard to compare them.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's a different vibe because it's like 16 hours long.
Yeah, but it's so fun and warm and genuine.
I don't think there's much funny. I don't think there's much that isn't earned. The writing's really good. I was cackling about a bunch of stuff.
It's so fucking funny.
Like, there's this bit in one of the final confrontations where, you know, they're mouthing off at one of the final bosses, and Rocket's like, "Yeah, we're the Guardians of the Galaxy," and Drax is like, "We have business cards." And it's like, what? I don't know. There's just so many little gags, so many things.
Yeah,
it really made me laugh and chortle. It almost made me cry at the end. It was really warm-hearted and genuine.
The bit with the fucking dragon.
The dragon's amazing.
But like, the bit where like Drax is so excited we're finally gonna go and kill this fucking dragon. Like I was like in hysterics.
What, for that whole chapter?
No, like as in like the moment you decide to actually go and get the thing, and he's like thrilled about it. Because he just wants to hunt this thing. And I'm sitting here going like, I just thought this was a throwaway line. Like, I can't believe we're actually going to go get this fucking thing.
You see, for me, because I played like 6 chapters and then I left it for like a month. So there's a lot of continuity between what happens at the start of the game and even what happens at the very, very end of the game.
Yeah.
And so there are a few things like that were lost on me. And I kind of think I'm not going to be the only one in that situation because the game's really long for a single player story game. But it is a good payoff and it is cool. Like there's a bunch of great payoffs like that.
How did I describe it when I was talking about it? It's like a really good like season of a TV show.
Yeah, you did. And because that was I think in response to my criticism at the time of like I got a bit fatigued by just doing chapter after chapter after chapter because I did a huge chunk in one day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm getting a bit fatigued. Like, they're always yelling in that game. Like, they're always screaming at each other to talk, and then in battle, and then when they're sliding down slides, they're always yelling.
Mm-hmm.
They're yelling through the ship walls at each other. It's always yelling. And so that was, I think, in response to that. But this game is on Game Pass. It's on PlayStation Plus. Plus,
one of them.
No, what is it? It's essential. It's fucking. What's the middle one? It doesn't matter.
The only one that's worth considering upgrading to.
Yeah, it's in the PlayStation Plus, PS4 and 5 collection. Oh my god.
It's complicated to say.
Play
it's
this game if you enjoy
understand.
single player story. Pardon?
It's complicated to say. It's complicated to understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you enjoy Marvel stuff, if you enjoy single player gameplay stories, if you don't mind the gameplay not being all that,
it's worth popping down on easy, making the cooldowns for your buddies like as low as possible because you can decide all that. Yeah. Just do that, breeze through it, have a fun time. Don't let the gameplay bog you down. I
would say it's still better to play than it would be to watch it.
Yes.
So you can have those dialogue decisions.
Definitely.
You can have those interactive moments.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I just mean as in don't let you if you've lost a battle twice, then just bring it down, get through it. Don't let it stop you.
Yeah. And the other thing I've got written here is PlayStation Plus. It's driving me crazy now. I need to look it up. What are the fucking names of the
Deluxe? It's Deluxe.
But it's finally launched in Australia, and so I had this discussion with Ollie on Discord. Just like I think I'm going to get it, especially because I've got 5 months left on my year subscription, and so I only have to pay $34 to have it be the deluxe version for the rest of the year. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually not that much money. I'm happy to do that, especially because I'm curious about it. I have been keen on it. It's what is it? It's Essential, Extra, and Deluxe.
As opposed to me, which gets to pay 80 cents to get it for 3 days, and then it auto-renews at $154.
I don't think that's a problem on them. That you just happened to look when your subscription had like 72 hours left. That's not their fault.
I think auto-renew shouldn't be turned on at that point.
Yes, I agree. Auto-renew is bad. That is a good point. But I did end up getting it because I'm kind of curious. It wasn't too much money. I looked at some of the games. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to buy this, but I do want to play it. So I'm going to do that. And I had an interesting experience when I clicked the payment button and started downloading games. I downloaded about 10 games.
And you got 10 emails.
No, I didn't.
You will.
It doesn't do that because you're not adding them to your library. It doesn't do that.
Oh, some of them it definitely does.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen people all over Twitter saying like, "Hey, I got fucking look how many emails I got from fucking PlayStation saying that
that's annoying.
Yeah, that I purchased this game."
So, I'll go through the games I downloaded in a minute, but my PS5 had a bit of a moment when it was downloading everything. It got to so first thing I started playing after I downloaded a whole bunch of shit. The first thing I started playing was this PSP I think game called Velocibox, which is sort of like a super hexagon score attack, like random, like arcade, endless runner kind of deal.
Oh, this looks cool.
Jeremy, I think it's cool. I think it's really up your alley. I uninstalled it. It's far too hard. It is so difficult. Like, it's unreasonably difficult. I'm sitting this and I'm like, am I just too old for this game? What is happening? Like, I didn't understand why. Like, I got to like level 3 and there was clearly like 50 or 60 or 70 different versions of difficulty. And I'm playing, I'm like, I think I'm just not cut out for this. I haven't had that moment where I'm like, I literally cannot play this.
It's $3 on Steam. I might buy it.
It's for, people wanting that score attack arcadey thing. It's not a bad choice. But the reason I mention it is because I'm pretty sure it was updating. Every time I died, but with a new high score, which was frequently because I was dying often and my score was quite low, it would, I think, either try and save to the storage of my high score, or it would maybe save to a leaderboard or a high score tracker online, but maybe not. But point is, every time it tried to save a high score, my game would hitch, just freeze for about 30 seconds. And then would come good, and I'd get a little notification on the screen saying, "Oh, couldn't access network feature of this. Some features may not be something." I'm like, That's a weird notification to get every time I get a high score. It happened every time. It even happened when I tried to load up Resident Evil. Just loading into the game, it just hitched.
Yeah, right.
And then my internet died. Like, there was just this... And then when I tried to turn off my PlayStation, it took about 90 seconds of, like, turning off your PlayStation 5. Please don't unplug the power cable. Which normally takes, like, 4 seconds. It was there for 90 seconds with this display. I'm like, I actually just got up and left. So I feel like by downloading about 10 games at once, the PS5, and from this service, I think the PS5 was making some bad requests to the server or something. It was really having a bad time. It was not happy. I'm not... There's a small part of me that thinks that it had something to do with my internet going down as well.
Sure.
That could be a coincidence, but it just felt like there was so much weird, random shit happening once I did that. I didn't quite know how to explain any of it.
It's just Jim Ryan manually limiting the internet for anyone who's not playing the newest games.
I guess so.
It's like, you playing old games, are you?
You paid the most to be able to play the old stuff, but little did you know, it's actually malware.
They look ugly. Don't play old games. I'm Jim Ryan.
Jim Ryan British?
Yes.
He is British.
Yeah.
I forgot he was actually British.
As opposed to what, fake British?
As opposed to like being American and you were giving him a British accent.
No, he's English.
Jeremy, I'm going to use you 3 guesses. And you don't have to think about it too hard.
Okay.
What's the thing? I downloaded 10 games at once. 10
Siphon
games
filter.
At once. No. What's the... I don't even know or care what that is.
Okay.
What's the thing that I played the first and most of so far?
You downloaded the PS4 version of Uncharted.
Oh, no, not quite.
The thing you played first or the most
So I downloaded 10 things.
Okay.
The first thing I played was this, and I played it the most.
I don't know.
Go with your heart. Just
Marvel's
right off the cuff.
Avengers.
I don't think that's on there.
Knack.
No.
I don't know.
Jeremy, I downloaded and played Final Fantasy X-2 Remaster. Which is funny, because
What,
I
don't
put
you
7 hours of that in on Xbox Game Pass.
I was going to say, why?
I don't know, Jeremy.
What the fuck? Why? You're playing the same 10 hours that you played on the other console.
The thing I was most wanting to play on the Xbox when I went through the whole catalog was 10-2 Remaster. And then I saw it here. I'm like, ooh.
Kerry.
10-2 Remaster?
Why did you do that?
Jeremy, I don't know. I don't know. And I saved
What
that to
did you
tell you now
learn?
because I do feel a bit like I needed to confess. Like I feel a little guilty
Yeah,
about
you should repent.
it. Like a part of me is like...
Paid $30 to play a game it's already installed on your other console.
Yeah. I played a bunch of other stuff since then. You know, I tried the different Resident Evils there. Rather, the different versions of Resident Evil 1 there, to be specific.
Are there any other Resident Evil games on there?
There's a lot on PlayStation now. There's not a lot for us. So there's a lot if you can stream. Not if you can't.
Great.
Yeah.
Kerry, that's good.
We're going to go into more of the streaming service stuff next week, so I'm not going to go into it too much here. What I did play today, though, testing out my capture card with the PS5 here, I did play Jak and Daxter.
Ah, yes. The quintessential 4K title.
The quintessential 4K title. But point being, I was like, let's give this first one a go. I haven't played it since I rented it when I was really young. Like 10 or 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it that much, to the point where I was comfortable talking shit about it on the Discord this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I may have been wrong, Jeremy. It may actually hold up a bit better than I thought it did.
It's surprising, honestly, how well that game holds up. Because I felt the same, honestly, when it came out. Because because I didn't buy it when it came out. I bought it well after it came out. But I was like, oh, it's just a jumping one where you're collecting stuff, and like that, I didn't really care for that much. And then I started to appreciate.
And it kind of is all that you're doing.
Yes, but then you realize like, oh, this is just like a really fun like Mario 64. Like this is like a really good. Like just like another one of those. Like it's another cool Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
Those have got bespoke levels, but you know what I mean, right? Like there are zones which basically work as bespoke levels in this as well.
I was just thinking that Mario feels way better than this does, but yes, and it's essentially you're right.
Kinda, they're different.
They are different. But like it struck me better than I thought it would. I'm at 12%. Overall completion after like an hour. Like that was fun. I might play a bit more. It's pretty lighthearted. I don't understand why Jak 3 isn't a part of the collection at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Just Jak 1, 2,
and X.
And X, the racing spin-off.
Yeah, the karting.
Which came out after 3 and was built on 3's hardware and like software and stuff. So yeah. We're going to get into it more next week. I also played Dark Cloud, which is a whole other thing. That's a game. I played that game initially when my cousins got a PS2, which is after I did, but it meant that they had a different demo disc. And so I played their demo. You remember the PlayStation 2 demo discs?
Yeah.
And like depending on when you bought your console, you got a different one.
Oh, you mean one that came with the console?
Yeah, PS2s came with demo discs.
Mine didn't.
Mine definitely did. And so did my cousins.
Mine came with Ratchet and Clank and Gran Turismo.
Yeah, that's part of like a bundle, though. It's part of like a deal, right?
Yeah,
or was that in the box?
No, I never got a disc.
Okay. Well, they did that earlier. Maybe they stopped doing it later on. So my cousin and I played it. And we really enjoyed it, doing like the cave combat gameplay, to the point where my uncle bought it for my cousin. And my cousin's like a year younger than I am. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. But when he played it, there's a pretty messed up cutscene at the start of this game, actually, where there's a bunch of like cultists dancing around a big urn, and they summon a genie. Genie eats someone and then blows up a village with like laser beams from their belly button and their foot and their finger. And so my cousin actually had nightmares about this game, to the point where my uncle took away the game and he never played it again.
Nice. That's funny.
But I never got the game, and I really wanted to play it, and I didn't get nightmares from it. So this is the first time I've been able to play it. I didn't want to put down the money for it when it came out originally. And it's good. It's fine. It's interesting. It's got cool like survival elements in there, and like weapon durability and stamina. Like it's got a surprising number of like interesting mechanics in there. It's almost like proto Dark Souls. You know what I mean? With base building.
Yeah. Do you like the city building?
I only played about half an hour. Yes and no. Like, it's not that hard to clear out a cave, and when you clear out the cave, you get every item, and then when you get every item, you can kind of do every task. So it seems pretty like it felt like a pretty nothingy game. Like I could just melt away into this. I could just put hours into this game, almost like a mystery dungeon. Like I could just go through the dungeons and do the things.
Yeah, I watched my housemate play a bunch of Dark Cloud. It seemed really cool.
Yeah, decent enough.
Conceptually, and being able to go in and out of the base building and walking around it, like with a click of a button's pretty sick.
And do it however you want. It's cool. Like, I'm interested to see Dark Chronicle kind of like curiosity-wise, but like, not too set on it either way. Yeah, that's my week. It's been a pretty full week. I don't really know what I'm going to do this week. A lot of PlayStation Plus stuff, I guess. And Persona, maybe. But what I am going to do is I'm going to eject Guardians of the Galaxy from my Xbox Series X for the first time in months. Months and months. Which is good, because when there's a disc in there, it's actually much louder as a console, just in general.
Really? Is yours on the side?
Yeah, as soon as you take a disc out of the Xbox, it's really quiet.
Oh, I just don't know. Maybe the games that I'm playing on disc aren't, they're not reading off of it very much.
Oh, sure. I mean, just in general. And like, this is me who like sits here at my desk. Like, my console sits literally right here. Like, it's underneath my mic arm. Like, It's right here. So I notice when there's noise or when there's rumbling.
Yeah, right.
Pretty well. If it's over on the bookshelf by the projector when I'm in the lounge room, like I don't notice it, but yeah.
Cool.
We're gonna go on a break, everybody. And when we come back, I should have mentioned this at the start of the show, but when we come back, we're gonna talk about remakes. Stick around, we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back to the MiniMapCast. We've just done a new thing in the break, which is we hung out with Twitch chat while we were in the break, which was cool. Spoke about a different facet of the topic we're about to discuss now, based on a question from the chat, and spoke about recasting actors, a whole bunch of stuff. So if you ever want to sit in the chat with us, we record most usually on a Monday night. So come and hang out with us.
On a Monday night.
David Lynch, is that you?
Yeah. Every time anyone says a day now, I can only hear it in David Lynch's voice because I watch his fucking weather reports every day.
You watch his daily vlogs, his 90-second vlogs.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing for someone to do.
It's a weird guy.
It's strange that he's famous and decides to do that every day.
Yeah. Yeah, like he does that for fun.
But like
that and the number of the day.
Like he wants to and he can, so great.
Yeah. And like I love him for it.
Not his movies, but his weather reports. Oh boy.
Oh, I love him for his movies too.
You'll be watching them. If you laid them all out in front of you, Jeremy, the numbers of those videos that you're about to watch, they'd go out about as far as the eye could see.
David Lynch, go on MiniMapCast.
You could spearhead the questions in that particular interview, Jeremy. We're going to talk about remakes, as in general, as a concept, as a way of, as in terms of how they are so prevalent in the industry at the moment and how we feel about them, their pros and cons, and what some of our favorites are.
Yeah. As a concept and as a product.
Yes, definitely. And this is sort of brought about because there's been a bit of chatter about this recently, but I think it's pretty prescient that there is a lot of remakes coming soon that have come out recently in the last few years, and that like we're getting this year and that we can look forward to, or that are billed as big items and stuff like that. So it bears examining, I think. And I mean, obviously, because we're going to do the discussion. I think maybe we should start with just sort of defining the terminology we're going to use, and this is just this probably won't be news to anyone listening, but just so we're across it and we've laid this out here right now. We're going to talk about the difference between what a remake and a remaster is.
Yeah, because there's some assumed knowledge, and I think it is worth just pointing out that I think like a remake is them building the game again from the beginning, right? Like that might include redesigns, that might include changes, that might include
new content.
Yeah, like new content, like different decisions being made about the same game. Like a remake is kind of like a reboot of a film. You know, when a film comes around and it gets rebooted, it's usually different. You know, they don't want to do the same movie again. They're like, they're going to do different shots. They're going to have different music and different settings, some different lighting and all that stuff, right?
Different decisions from the actors.
Yeah, of course. Like a remake is not dissimilar to like a reboot in that regard, whereas a remaster is usually like it's the same game running in the same engine with new graphics, running on new hardware. There might be a couple of quality of life changes, like either like higher frame rate or better audio or different UI or different buttons or like slightly different camera controls are usually the go-tos.
But it's like they've taken the existing project files and adapted them and added to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a port is like the old game running on new hardware.
Yeah, just making it run on new system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To port
Something
across.
I will say, yes. something I will say with that reboot to remake comparison, I feel there's more license with a reboot to do something different than there usually is typically with a remake. You know what I mean? I feel like if you're getting a remake of something, although, you know, Final Fantasy VII is sort of flying in the face of this, but if you're getting a remake of something, you're getting the same thing made today for the most part.
I think yes, but I also think the only reason we think that is because games don't get rebooted very often. And when they do, they are usually a different game. For
sure. It's just that, you know, when I think of modern reboots, something that the first thing that pops to mind for me right now is God of War, you know, and that was sort of, that's a blurred line because that's like
it's a
pseudo sequel reboot.
Yeah.
Because they haven't discarded any of the previous lore and mythology.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe God of War is it's a reboot of the franchise.
Right.
Like as opposed to it's not a reboot of the first God of War.
Not the story.
Well, at all the first God of War, right? It's like it's not the same gameplay, it's not the same location, same character, same story, right? It's like it's not the first God of War at all, aside from Kratos is there.
Yeah, it's just continuous. So yeah, it's just to sort of lay that foundation there.
Yeah.
Our first sort of discussion point here is, how do you feel about remakes overall? How do we feel about it? I feel like it's a very complicated knot to untangle.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I didn't think it was going to be until right that second when I had to think about it. You know what I mean?
You know when you thought about the answer, you're like,
oh shit.
Look, I think I enjoy most kinds of remakes, but I enjoy the kind of remake, and this is going to be a very Jeremy answer. I enjoy the kind of remake where they get to do a different twist on a thing that's already known. So like a reimagining of what it means to be property X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm. So, do you want to get the playlist going?
Oh yeah, we got video to go on.
We got trailers to just go on the video, so you're not missing out on too much audio. But if you want to see projects that are relevant to the discussion, they'll be up on the video feed.
Yeah. I think that like a good example of that would be Pokemon. Actually, I think Pokemon Let's Go is a really good reimagining and a pseudo remake of the original Pokemon games. Because I think that one specifically has a really good. It's the same story as the original game. A lot of the mechanics are the same, but it's sort of like it asks the question like, what does it mean to catch a Pokemon in a Pokemon game? And I think that does a really good job of sort of answering that, while still changing it. But also the originals are still there, right? I think like remakes to me, the most important thing a remake can do is change what it means to be that series, and also introduce people who are not currently fans of a series into a series. So if Pokemon Let's Go was someone's first Pokemon game, that would be a really good entry into the series to allow you to then go back and play some of the others, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair enough.
I think that's what I like about remakes.
Sure. Okay.
I don't like them when they don't understand. But we'll get there.
Well, yeah, I think it's very easy for someone for a developer or a publisher to decide to create a remake because the original has so much like goodwill and cachet with the public. And a decision informed by that sort of motivation pretty quickly becomes and feels pretty hollow. I feel.
Remakes are more often than not very safe. And they also are it's a very easy way to get like honestly like cheap goodwill.
Yeah. And you see that a lot with remasters, right? Like,
yes.
Dishonored did well, but it was at the end of this console generation. Let's people said it had performance issues. Let's put it on the new hardware. Like in 2014, when we got so many games being remastered for PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
A lot of that was like, we need new thing on new console. It's just the old thing, but you're gonna buy it because maybe you didn't play it before or you really liked it.
Yeah. You're
relying on the goodwill of the audience that you've cultivated so far to sort of propel you forward. And that's really like cynical, you know, and it sort of it's sort of like mining the oil. I'm lost in the terminology, but it's like wringing this little bit of content, this bit of product that you can, wringing it dry until there's nothing left.
Yeah,
and maybe you should have just gotten something different or tried something different or taken a bit of risk. That said, like the problem is it works and they can make those decisions because some part of me and some part of millions of other people does just want to enjoy old thing is new again.
Yes.
Which is, you know, it's backwards and it's not enough for us to put our combined efforts into sort of like or ethically sometimes. It's like I don't want to do this the most. I would rather be doing other things. I don't want to keep seeing Ghostbusters movies that rely on what came before. I want to see them do something different.
Yeah.
I want to you sort of get stuck in a loop at some point.
Yeah, and you know, I think in my opinion, like Nintendo is the worst offender of that. Where they will just resell the same thing like just over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll give you ports and remasters and remakes and all of them will be a bit sort of hollow in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the way the different companies handle that is a good distinction to point out. You don't see that many from Xbox, really.
No.
Not full remakes. The biggest version of that we did get was Halo 1 and 2 with their anniversary editions.
Yeah.
They got completely overhauled. On the same engine, stuff like that. But yeah, when you look at PlayStation and when you look at Nintendo, you can definitely see that sort of cynical, hey, there's an anniversary of this. We know millions of people bought this already. We know millions of people are going to buy it again. Let's just get it out. So yeah, it's an interesting push and pull of like, yeah, I'll play this thing again if you release it. And why are you only focusing on this? I want you to do something different. When you released this originally, it wasn't the classic that it is today. Yeah. I want you to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam is saying, did you mute or is it me? Are we muted on stream?
We were muted and I don't know why.
Were we muted on the recording?
Yeah. I don't know what happened that caused that to happen.
How long has that been, I wonder?
Hopefully not too long. But also we've got our separate recording, so the podcast will be fine.
Yeah, so the recording is fine. Sorry, Twitch chat. Sorry we were muted.
Yeah, I might have accidentally clicked it.
So yeah. You messaged immediately when you muted. Okay, cool. How do we feel about changes? So how do you feel, Jeremy, when they do take something and they do make something a bit different, when they do remix it or they do make either an artistic decision that changes maybe the tone of a scene, or they make a story decision that changes outcomes for what might have happened for a different character? How do you feel about that?
I have opinions, Kerry.
Good.
I have opinions on this.
Well, this is the place for them.
I think that when they do it from a way of improving the tone, perhaps fixing an error, or doing it in such a way that means that the scene or the game is amplified in a way, I think that's a good change. So, for example, I think Final Fantasy VII does that a lot. There's a lot more things happening in that game now, right? Obviously, Final Fantasy VII Remake is an extreme version of what Final Fantasy VII was, which was a turn-based, RPG from 1997.
Yeah.
And now it's a fully fledged action combat, character action game.
Based on only the first 5 hours. Yeah,
right. I think that the move away from turn-based was like, I don't know if it was a risk, because I think that they've been good at that game for a long time. But I think it was still a decision that they would have had to think about and go are we gonna make our premier title an entirely different genre of gameplay?
And I think it's really to its benefit. One of the games I downloaded on PlayStation Plus was 7, the original, the remastered, I guess, on PS4. And that game is slow.
Yeah, it is. It's slow. It's a 25-year-old game.
Yeah. The combat is so sluggish. You just sit there and watch as your bar fills up and the enemies get to attack you in the meantime. You're just waiting.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they gave you, because there's elements of the ATB there.
It's literally called the ATB, still in there.
But you get to do so much more in the meantime while you're waiting, and you get to charge it up faster with your different actions. And
yeah.
Whereas,
I think, the idea that you change the style and feeling of a game for the sake of just straight fidelity, I feel like can often, if you're not careful. And look, it's a very hard balance. If you're not careful, you can lose part of the feeling of the game. Shadow of the Colossus is on screen right now. I think that's a really good example of adding fidelity and still keeping the tone and the vibe of the game, of the original.
Keeping intact.
Yes, the original intention of Shadow of the Colossus is still definitely there. Whereas for, I'll use Mass Effect as an example, even though I personally haven't played the original Mass Effect. Looking at some screenshots and some comparisons, there were plenty of times where I'm sitting here going while the new one looks shinier and is shinier, the original was sort of going for a thing. It was trying to hit a striking image or a tone, which gets, for me, quite lost. Halo 1 Remake, I think, is a really good example of that, where I feel like they lose a lot of the personality in a lot of the world design to make things look more detailed. But they lose, the intention then gets muddied there. I honestly think that the Halo remakes are some of the best, specifically because of their swap back and forth nature of it, where you get the original game as well. The exact same
totally,
time.
Which is a really unique way to do it. And I think it's something that we're not going to see that often.
No.
Because it generates that, it allows everyone to make the comparison at the press of a button.
Yes.
And it turns out it can be an incredibly divisive thing to remake something that some people, or maybe thousands or millions of people, really love and really care for. And they're the people who are going to buy the remake. They're the people who want to get it again and see what else you've done to it.
And Halo is also a very specific example where those games still play really well for the most part, so that you can run those old games on that old engine and it's still great.
Yeah.
You're still going to have a great time. And also people are so intricately familiar with every aspect of that engine that, if you fuck with that, people are going to know. So that you running it on the old one is the safest option. But yeah, having both options for graphics is it's the thing about, if you if you compare yourself to something that's better than you, like then you're doing something wrong. And like it's tough, right? It's tough to do that. It takes an amount of humility, I think, to say like, hey, if you don't want all of this work that we put in, if it's just not your jam, your game from 2001 is still there. And yeah, like not many games I think are confident enough to do that. And I also don't think most games work that way because, you know, you can't swap between the old graphics and the new graphics of Final Fantasy VII, for example.
No. Well, yeah, that would be impossible.
Yes,
because
it's just an entirely different video game at that point.
It's fundamentally different. It has been remade.
Yeah.
And completely reinterpreted in some ways. And yeah, it's so exponentially different.
Yeah.
But also the same. Yeah, 7 Remake is such an interesting version of this.
Yeah, it's almost like God of War in that sense, where it's like you are doing everything different, almost, aside from the structure of the story is the same, but even then it's changing.
Yeah. Although, yeah, we only knew that the structure of the story was changing when we got to the end of it.
No,
but
when
like we thought it was
the first time the ghosts come up is pretty early though, and they're not in the game at all.
True, but it's pretty unclear about what the hell that is. But
Sure.
that's a good point. But when it is just even if they're not fucking with the story like they are going to, seemingly, even if they aren't fucking with the story, like the game is so different.
Yes.
You know, it would be like if you tried to remake literally Super Mario Brothers in 3D. Not what does Mario look like in 3D, but what does it mean when you take the 1985 Super Mario Brothers and make it a 3D game? Like, how do you make that work? I don't know how you would.
I mean, like, that's Mario 64 though, isn't it?
Yes and no.
Yeah,
yes and no.
Yeah, I know.
It's better than that answering that question. Them saying this is how you do a 2D game, adding a third dimension is like
yeah.
it's you can't just try and translate that. It wouldn't work that way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they went that route with 7 Remake here because they modernized it in so many ways to where it is now. It's not only a classic game, the original, but now we've got our hands on a modern classic as well.
Yeah.
And that's really impressive. In terms of changes, I've never been one to really be that bummed by it. Like I've said before recently on the show, I think this came up. We were talking about how we brought up like the Mass Effect examples and stuff like that, and how it feels like, or maybe it wasn't recently on the show, but it at least was on the Discord, where it feels like to me sometimes that Jeremy's is looking out for those tonal differences if assets have been remade and stuff like that, and kind of feels like it's hard to please Jeremy sometimes. Like if I bring up a discussion point, Jeremy's like, "Oh, this looks off, this looks different, this doesn't look right."
I'm granted a lot more critical on remakes and remasters. Like I'm maybe like, to go a step further, I'm a lot more cynical when it comes to them because I have less faith, I think, that they are doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and honestly, that's totally valid and fair. And I'm quite forgiving and optimistic, I guess, in that regard. I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, it looks a little different, but I like the resolution. I like the texture resolutions better. You know, like I'm pretty easy to please in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Like with the Mass Effect example for one thing. Like I'm just kind of glad they did as much work on one as they did because, man, that's a 2006 like early Xbox 360 game. Like that the original game is a little rough.
Yeah, like it looks ugly in a lot of places.
Totally. But yeah, I don't mind license, I guess, for developers to make something as good as they can based on their judgment at the time. I have faith and I have and I have a bit of trust that they're doing their best.
Yeah, like I think when I'm critical of them, I don't think that I don't think that they're not doing their best. I think
sure, yes. So I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no. I think it's just more that I feel like a lot of the time it's not. Maybe it's just not coming from the right place, or there's just maybe a lack of, maybe a lack of direction, right? Because I think there might be an assumption on some of these projects that you don't need a voice to recreate a game, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Like, the game's already there. You don't need to decide anything. Just make it look better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very
just press
easy.
The up-res button.
Exactly. And it's very easy to accidentally make it worse. A really good example is the Grand Theft Auto remakes they brought out recently.
The trilogy, yeah.
Where I couldn't believe...
A lot of people said not even good remakes, but...
Yes, right. Yeah, beyond that stuff, it was literally put through just a 3D model upraising software, and jokes were getting ruined, models were worse, and I remember you and I disagreed immediately on does this look better or worse, and you were saying it looks better and I was saying it looks worse. And then there were things like there's an auto shop which is called Nut or something, and it was a big bolt.
Didn't they do a lot of texture upscaling, AI texture upscaling or something?
Yeah, and it ruined it introduced spelling mistakes because they didn't check it. But the nut that was on top of the building.
Oh yeah, an octagonal nut that you use in mechanical work.
Got turned into a donut. It got turned into a rounded object, which is just not the joke. That was a really egregious one to the point where they took it down. Right, they stopped you from being able to buy it. And
that whole thing was. I mean, it had performance issues and
everything about it was fucked.
Yeah, it was so bad. And that's where that cynicism is well founded. In an example like that, 100%.
Yeah, and my concern is that happens a lot. It's the same argument with the Resident Evil. Sorry, the Resident Evil on the screen. The Silent Hill remaster, where they were like, "Hey, guess what? This fog was here so that they didn't have to render so many polygons. Let's remove the fog." And oh, cool, the atmosphere's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
It turns out a lot of these video decisions based on graphics also had a design reason about it. It would be
totally.
It would be like if they made the first Crash Bandicoot levels in a straight line because they can render the whole level at once.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're designing around limitations. Maybe you should still honor those limitations. Those design decisions made around those limitations, even if the limitations aren't there already, or aren't there again.
Got to keep the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the Resident Evil 2 remake trailer on screen, and this is a series that's been so remade when you look back on its history. Resident Evil 1, 4 was remastered,
and now there's a remake of 4.
There's a remake of 4 coming next year. Remakes of 2 and 3 came out over the last 3 years that were very well received.
3 not as much, but I think 3 is still just a game that not as many people like.
Yeah, I think it was kind of short, and they charged a lot for it as well. So that was sort of like a publishing issue at that point.
Right.
But with 2, people really liked it, and again, that was another
really
sort
good
of thing, like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where they really took a lot of steps to modernize it, and they did introduce. That's a game where you talk about. Bringing things up to fidelity and potentially losing tone. You played the game at all? I haven't played it at all, but you played it. Would you say that it's pretty? They've managed to keep a foreboding and harrowing and horrific tone,
100%. And beyond that, they even recreated some of the cutscenes almost shot for shot into, and did the same jump scares, the same eerie quietness at the exact same moments. They recreated what it was like to feel what that game would have been like to play for the first time. while
They
making
didn't
it
just remake the assets; they remade the moments.
Yes, which is it's really hard to do that. Like they did a really good job because it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. So we've got another prompt here. It says why remakes are important and where does a remake fit into the legacy of a product in general. Sort of touching on game preservation issues and things of that nature. It definitely speaks to, like, some people I think would say why a remake is important is because it keeps it modern, it keeps it available, it keeps it accessible. But I think that really does speak to why game preservation is important at the moment and how difficult it is to get your hands on things that aren't properly kept on hand for you to be able to access when you need to.
Yeah.
Game preservation is something that many people are working on. Lots of independent efforts to catalog games and games media from an old age, like magazines and stuff like that. Keep the hardware on board. There are so many of the NES and SNES cartridges. They've all got batteries in them, and all the batteries are starting to die.
Yeah,
and the contacts are starting to wear off, and people have lost game files from earlier back in the day. So there's a real effort being made by a lot of people who aren't the main developers to help
I think
things in check, because
we could be a little bit more fair.
There's not many visible efforts for publishers and developers, I think, to maintain that stuff. I think is fair to say.
Yeah, I think to be maybe a little bit fairer, it's specifically the publishers and the owners of the companies that own the studios, because it's the big wigs. They're not interested in preservation. That doesn't make them money, right? So
yeah, they're not there for the artistic medium. They're there for the. And to be fair, like people who I'm sure, like cataloging efforts for film and movies and TV, I'm sure a lot of those aren't backed by big studios and Fox and.
Weirdly,
am I wrong?
So yes and no. Some companies yes, some companies no. It's different though, because they have an immediate financial reason to do that, right?
Why's
so
that?
Well, because you don't need to buy an old TV to watch an old movie. They can just always sell that thing, so they always have a reason to preserve it. Right. They keep the old tapes so they can always remaster the films later.
Whereas with early games and stuff like that, you have to sort of adapt them and work on them to allow them to fit new technology, right?
Yeah. It is easier. Like what is harder for film companies is to keep the original rolls in original canisters of film in like climate controlled environments, because there have been fires in the past which have wiped out stuff, and if it was filmed on cassette, I know weirdly a lot about some of this stuff. Like if it was filmed on cassette, for example, it's harder to bring forward because the original quality was already bad. But a lot of, for example, in Star Trek Next Generation, it was filmed on cassette, but it wasn't actually filmed on cassette. It was filmed on film and then immediately transferred to cassette. And so for a long time, they were like, we can't ever remaster this show because it was filmed on a VHS, because it was the early like 90s or something.
Yeah.
Or 80s or something, and it was like,
then they found the reels.
They found the reels, and they were able to go back, but that meant they had to recut it.
Oh,
yeah, it was, and it ended up being a mammoth job, but they did it and they sold it, and it's like wonderful. But like, yeah, they had to recut the original copies of it.
It's like all those sitcoms from the early 2000s that didn't adapt to HD or widescreen.
Yeah, right. All of the ones that are still like 4:3.
New series that started around those times did. So Scrubs was like 4:3 until like 2008.
And then
while Arrested Development started in 2004 in widescreen.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So in terms of games, it's hard. I think
it is hard.
Something like the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I think, is a really good example of that's a remaster, to be fair, with some very heavy remastering going into the original game because it really needed it. But I think something like that for a game that happened at the start of a generation that was maybe 2 generations ago, and we didn't see anything for it in the next generation, the PS4, Xbox One generation, except for Andromeda. But I think it's good to be able to make that more accessible for people who want to play it new and shiny, for people who want to play it on whatever they're using currently without having to get an old console out. I think that is important, and I don't think it's unreasonable to charge for it either. But there is a question of, like, why can't we just use the old thing? Why can't we just be happy with playing Super Mario Brothers? I'm just going to keep coming back to this example.
Sure.
Playing Super Mario Brothers on the NES, or say if you originally bought it on Wii, like, getting the Wii Virtual Console version of that and playing that instead of having to subscribe to NSO to download their subscription model. It feels like there's because there's hardware, graphics, technology limitations, because all of video games is digital, that it's almost more rife for exploitation in some way, or for rehashing stuff that doesn't necessarily need it.
Yeah. Yes. I feel like it is more, and like, I think you and I both know that any development costs money. It costs labor. It's not the click of a button. It takes time and work, because you want to make sure what you're putting out isn't bad. But you wonder where I'm going with this. Sometimes when they do this, they do all of this, charge for it, and it is still bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, look at like worse than the original, or like look at the original version of Ocarina of Time that came out on the Nintendo Switch Online. Yeah. Like, it had,
man, that broke my heart.
Graphical errors, it had bugs, it had a bunch of different stuff, right? You right?
I think we got a duplicate trailer here.
Yeah, it's probably looping. This is RE3. Looks like RE2, right,
but it's the same intro. That's funny, because it's happening in the same place at the same time on the same night.
Yeah. It's like, you need to put the work in. It needs to be, like, at minimum the same as the old one, right? And sometimes
it's still a creative effort.
Yes. And it should be for the right reasons, right? Like, the moment it came out and we saw the state that it was in, which is not like, it wasn't, the worst thing in the world. You couldn't get past Karuko Village or anything like that, right? It was like, it was just not great.
Yeah.
They should have treated it maybe with more respect, and then immediately, the blinds opened and you saw the reason it was there, and it was to tick a box so that you would give them money for their subscription service.
Totally. And, like, they fixed it. They patched it.
Yeah.
Great. Well done. Thank you. Did you only do that because people pressured you for it and you thought maybe no one would notice? Or maybe you thought people would notice and you didn't care?
Or you had a budget that was too small to begin with. And when asked to increase the budget to get this right, you said no.
And it blows back on you, because, hey, turns out that really sucked.
Yeah.
It really sucked to play a version that was inferior in almost every way. Like, oh, man. And there are a lot of decisions being made like that.
That wasn't even a remaster, right? And so, going back to the original question about, like, why do we sometimes feel like we need remasters? And it's because sometimes a game, the original is always going to be there in a way, but sometimes the easiest thing in the world to bring people into, like, a loving relationship with the game that everybody else already loves is to remake it in a way that will meet modern standards. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah. It's we talk about, like, cynical, like, development or publishers. But it's not for nothing, I've said this already in this segment, but, there's a part of us there that wants it. There's a part of us there that wants shiny old. That wants...
Yeah.
Like, it's... Part of this is they're giving us what some people want.
And sometimes they give us The Last of Us remastered.
Sorry, do you mean Last of Us Remastered or The Last of Us Part 1?
Sorry, The Last of Us Part 1, the remake.
You mean Last of Us remastered?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be calling it that for until the end of time. It is like when Last of Us Part 1 was announced a month ago, not even earlier this month, and we're looking at the trailer footage and people say, "Oh yeah, it's remade from the ground up and it's this and it's that," and
That's
I'm
a lie.
looking at it, I'm like, it doesn't. A lot of these are like shot for shot the same. They're using the same assets. They're using the same performance capture. They're using it's going to be the same game.
It's a PS4 game, Kerry.
What?
This is a PS4 game running on a PS5. That is the reason it is 1440p 60 FPS, because
Right, yes.
it can't push higher than that. Because it's not supported in the engine, because it's a PS4
It could
game.
if they wanted it to. Like, if they were going to do this, they could make it happen if they wanted it to. I think that they've chosen not to.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know if this game is not going to come out on PS4. There are people, the people online who knows the validity of it, but like some of the assumption is that this is actually a PS4 game running in like a boosted mode.
Well, like it's a PS4 client with a PS5 patch.
It's not a native PS5 game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is just the Last of Us 2 engine. They just put as much of Last of Us 1's assets into the Last of Us 2 engine, beat for beat. But yeah, you look at that and it's like when you are preserving some parts and you're not, when you're like, parts of this game aren't remade, like new textures, new assets, right? That's impressive. That's good. But some other parts you're leaving completely untouched. That's not remade. It's a weird middle ground. That's why I want to call it a remaster, is because like
I'm just going to call it the rehabilitation of Joel Miller.
Rehabilitation of Joel Miller. We'll see. I still think the story as it is, it makes him irredeemable, but that's a conversation for September.
For when that game comes out.
Yeah. Jeremy.
Kerry.
I didn't actually put this ahead of time, which I should have, but what are your top 3 remakes?
So I have 3 that I'm going to bring up. The first one is Halo, which is hilarious considering how much I talk about how much I don't like the anniversary edition of Halo 1.
Halo 1, yeah.
And I'm not just talking about Halo 2. I am including Halo 1 in one of the best remasters I've ever played, specifically because of the ability to swap between them on the fly.
Really? That's fascinating.
I still think that is a absolute master stroke of a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It was not as clean on the 360, granted. You had a black screen for about 2 seconds every time you did it, as the assets had to stream in.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it running now on the Master Chief Collection, it is a absolute wonderful idea to be able to swap between them, compare them, and then the inclusion of being able to do it in cutscene in Halo 2. How outstanding is that?
It is outstanding. It's such a
love letter. It is such a genuine, like, we know how much the original means to you. We're not here to make it like we're here to try and make it better if we can. But if you don't want that, the original's still there for you. But
yeah, it's a player-centric decision.
Yeah, but like if you wanna compare it, here you go. And you know what? I still think that the version of Halo 2 that they put out is my default. I play that version. I think the version of Halo 2 they put out, the anniversary edition, I think it's outstanding. I think it's excellent.
Halo 2 Anniversary is so good.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is one of the best remakes.
Mm-hmm. For me, off the top of my head, and this is interesting because I haven't played it that much in comparison to how long this series goes for, but Mass Effect Legendary Edition, we brought it up a few times today, but it's so good to see that game modernized and to see it where it is today. That game, it means a lot to basically everyone who plays it once they get to a certain point. Because you develop such a connection to the characters and to the story and to the world, and the setting. And you just watching this trailer, like getting the trailers ready for having this on the stream today, and just seeing the 5 seconds of gameplay before I copied the link and pasted. I was like, oh shit, I need to play more of this. Like, there's so many cool scenes, cool vistas, moments, cutscenes, like dialogue choices, characters. There's so much that means so much for that game, and it's great that it's just available. It's great that they've done it and done a good job.
I'll be honest with you, Kerry. When the trailer came up, I was like, "Oh, maybe I should go back and actually properly play."
Yeah,
it's so hard to find the time for 3 giant fucking games.
Yeah, man.
It's really hard to find the time. And like that is, I think, the biggest thing that's stopping me, because I know I was really excited to play it. There's a reason I pre-ordered it and bought it on launch, and put it in and sat down and started playing Mass Effect 1. And I started to get into it, but it's just more like I just know how long it's going to be. It's like starting One Piece. Like, you just can't do it sometimes.
It's like, man, I could do so many other things with this time.
It's climbing a mountain to then realize there's 2 even fucking bigger mountains on the other side of it.
Totally. I know exactly what you mean. I will also say there is a fair amount, there is some credence to the idea that maybe if you're not hooked to the point where it becomes the top of your list, and I know you were enjoying one. I know that. And I was enjoying one when I was playing it. But there is a nugget of logic there that says you might be more engaged if you start with 2. It might pull you through.
It's not about being engaged.
Okay.
Because I was in on 1. I'm like, I'm gonna play this game. I'm enjoying. It's like watching early seasons of Star Trek. Like I've had my fair share of slow, drawn out, unrefined sci-fi. I've seen every Star Trek that isn't Deep Space Nine, and not even for me not liking Deep Space Nine, have barely seen it.
Let me ask you this though, Jeremy. When did you start watching that stuff? Did you watch it first, or did you watch it after you were hooked?
I watched it after I had to get hooked, but I got hooked on the original series, which is the hardest one to start. Right. But, I remember deciding one day I'm just going to sit down and watch every episode of The Next Generation. Yeah. And I still haven't done it, but that's only because I'm up to the season where they do the writer's strike and every episode fucking sucks. But, what I've seen is enough. I got to the end in my head.
Jeremy, let me ask you this.
Yes.
What are you playing next?
Like, what's my next game that I'm playing?
You're about to finish Neon White.
It's not Mass Effect.
No. I'm just saying, now might be the time.
It might be Dark Souls 2.
Oh, dude. Oh, what the fuck? You haven't finished Elden Ring. You don't want to do it, Jeremy. I can understand that you want to.
No, my next game is actually Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Yeah, sorry.
You're breaking my heart. That's fine. You got to do you. Don't forget, Jeremy, July 22nd, Live Alive is coming out as well.
Live Alive.
Live Alive, pardon me. Live Alive.
I am gonna buy that game. That game looks great.
Speaking of remakes or remasters.
Yeah. My next of my top 3 remasters. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's yours as well. Final Fantasy VII. It's just it's just like it's just an incredible game. It's just a 10 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Oh, you take that 0.5 out of your mouth, mister.
Oh, it's a little bit sexist.
Yeah, no, good point.
It's got some trouble.
It does have some trouble.
And look, not the parts that I thought it was going to be. So, that's pretty good for it.
Yep.
But it's not. I don't think it's perfect, but it's fucking close.
Yeah, it is.
And I also think it's more than some of its parts. And just we've spoken about Final Fantasy VII. We know about it.
We've spoken about it recently. We spoke about it at the time. We've spoken about it for this segment. But this game currently sitting at the top of my list of favorite games of all time. It's I can't wait to play more of it. I can't wait to see where the rest of it's going.
Oh, I'm gonna break your heart.
Okay, again.
Yeah.
How many pieces will my heart be in?
I don't know where my play disc is.
Oh, you did tell me that. You told me that your housemate was looking for it.
Yeah, but I looked for it. Like I looked in all the other cases. I don't know where it is.
Oh no, that's a shame.
Yeah, and because I was gonna play it the other day.
Oh, that does break. That bit breaks my heart that you didn't get there because you couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Let me see. EB Games, Final Fantasy VII Remake,
not
pre-owned on PlayStation 4, only $36.
Okay.
On sale, down from 44.
Yeah.
I've
got it on digital. I should be able to play it actually.
What do you mean you got it on digital?
Everyone got it on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, but it doesn't cover you for Remake. It doesn't cover you for Integrate.
I wonder if I could download the game, put in my install disc, and it might think it's the same version. No, because they added it after the fact. They said, yeah, it does now.
Does it?
I think way later. I think they did.
Oh, I don't know about that. Final Fantasy VII.
I'll have to double check.
But point being, this game's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Active PS Plus users can upgrade to PS5 version.
Yeah.
Does it come with Integrate? Does it come with Yuffie's chapter?
Doesn't matter. I bought that. It's a different.
Good point.
It's not. It's probably the same SKU.
Okay, so you should just be able to download it then.
Yep.
It can upgrade. Okay, well that's good.
Do you want to go for your final one or? Because I've got it in my final.
This isn't the one that's my favorite, but it is the other one that I have left, which is Demon Souls. Was that on your list as well?
Well, my final one was Blue Point, just as a studio.
As a cheat answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say what's good about Demon Souls, and then you can agree with me and talk about Shadow.
Sure.
But Demon Souls is astounding. When you look at footage of the original Demon Souls on PS3, it looks like a good PS1 game at times. Like, it looks so muddy and rough and jagged edged at times.
Yeah.
A good PS1 game is a bit of a stretch. A good PS2 game.
A good PS2 game, yeah.
And to be fair, it was an early PS3 game. That's kind of how generations work.
And especially for the PS3.
It has not aged gracefully in the least. It is not only due to all the accessibility issues we were talking about before in this episode, but man, is it hard to get a hold of, hard to play, and hard to look at. And the remake is maybe the most beautiful game I've ever seen. And it's been out for 18 months now. There are other games that can come forward and take its place after that much time, you'd think. But it's drop dead gorgeous. It's absolutely astonishing. And it's just bricks and fire and, rats.
Mountains.
But it doesn't matter. They've made it all so beautiful. So stylized and high definition. And
you gotta wait till you get to the Skeleton Islands.
Skeleton Islands.
Yeah.
When the lightning strikes the tree.
When you look up and you see the beast in the sky and you're like, oh my god.
Does that happen in game?
What?
Where you look up and you see a beast in the sky. I thought that was just part of the intro cinematic.
What beast are you talking about?
The intro cinematic, where there's like skeletons in front of your character, and then along the rampart wall, the big hands, and then the big monster goes like, Rah!
No, that's not the beast I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Great intro cinematic.
Oh, yeah. Like my answer is yes, Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus from Blue Point. I think because they, look, there are some people that complain about some of the things inside of these, and I think that there are some valid complaints in terms of some of the things that they've changed. Wanda's face in Shadow of the Colossus ain't great, but also you barely see it.
Yeah. What's wrong with it?
It's just as ugly. It's just not a good facial model at all, really. And look, that's important. He's the character in the game. I think they should have done a better job there, but also the rest of the game is just so fucking good.
Is that the horse?
Huh?
Is that the horse?
No, the guy.
Oh, the guy.
Yeah.
Wanda wanders.
Yes. Aggro is the horse.
That's right.
You should know it's because it's the only word in the game. And yeah, like Demon's Souls also has, some people complained about certain parts of the game with liberties they took. When you hear them talk about it, you kind of understand that they needed to take liberties because there just wasn't enough detail in the original game in some aspects. And some people say that like the liberties they took were incorrect, that's fine if you think that. For me,
those are the comparisons you invite when you undertake a project like this.
Of course. And, they knew that. I'm sure they had that conversation internally as well. That being said, like, I think just overall, it's just the way to play that game. It's just the way to play those games, honestly. They look incredible, and they really capture the feel of it. Like, I know Shadow of the Colossus front to back. I've played it so many times. I don't play the PS2 version or the PS3 port. I play the PS4 version on my PS5.
Yeah.
If they brought out a PS5 version of it, which like ran better and looked better, like I'd probably buy it.
Is it still your favorite game ever?
Probably.
Yeah. Neon White hasn't pipped it?
No. Yeah, like probably. I don't know. I don't know if a game will ever get that high. Like Outer Wilds came close, but like I don't think
it might be unreachable.
Yeah. It's just you just can't. So
well, much as I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII more, we really have done that a lot recently, and we're going a little long on this episode, so I think we'll leave it there. But just know that I'm thinking of it at all times. I just need you all to know that.
Like Barrett and his daughter.
Or the planet. He's thinking of both of those things at all times at once. Although, when he decides to leave his daughter in the city and just like leave, you got to wonder how much he's really thinking about his daughter. But that's, whatever.
He's on a mission.
Uh-huh.
He's determined.
Uh-huh. It's a non-fatherly mission though. It's a selfless mission. But when you are selfless and you have responsibilities, like you're letting the side down. That was a really weird tangent to end with, but that's what we're gonna do. This is the MiniMapCast. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. I already told you that we did the chat during the break, so what I'll tell you about instead is you can find this episode and all other episodes on minimap.com.au. You can also find us on any podcast service of your choice. If you want to help the show out at all, tell your friends about us if you think we're neat. That would help a bit. And we also have, clips of smaller segments of the show up on YouTube at the moment, so if you want to just share our Neon White discussion or just our Remakes discussion, we won't clip every part of every show out, but the bits that had good segments in them and good discussions, we'll clip those out for you there, so they're a bit more shareable, a bit more rewatchable as well if you want to find a specific point. You can also rate us positively on whatever platform you find us and listen to us on, if that's on YouTube, if that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you get us. If you give us a little plus or a 5 stars or a tick or a heart, don't give us 5 stars if it's a 10-star rating, because that would be bad for us.
Yeah.
But,
don't give us 10 stars if it's a 20-star rating.
Exactly. So, but also, I'm not going to tell you to, if that's what you genuinely think about us,
then give it to us anyway.
Give it to us anyway. That's fine. That's what the rating's there for. Another option, though, is also you could just tweet us. You don't have to give us a negative rating, but you could tweet us and tell us what we could do differently. We're both on Twitter individually. I'm there at KJPalmer_24. Blonde Jeremy, where are you on Twitter?
At Obi-Wan
Same Twitter account.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I took it off him. He let it lapse. If you have a discussion topic for us, feel free to let us know.
Good point. We've got one for next week. We're going to be talking about and comparing the different subscription services of all platforms once I spend a bit more time with PlayStation's offering. Now that NSOs is a bit more matured, we've got Xbox Game Pass, so we're going to be running through them all next week and talking about the pros and cons and what we like and dislike.
Who's gonna cop the Stadia bill out of the two of us?
Who?
Stadia.
Oh, Stadia. That's new. I haven't heard of them. That sounds interesting. What are they about?
Not much, as it turns out.
Hey, Minimap is also on all of the socials. We're on Twitter there as well, at MiniMapAU. We're also on Twitch and Instagram and TikTok. I'm like, the pressure was building up in my skull. We're also on Patreon if you wanted to support us monetarily. That's patreon.com/MiniMapAU. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. And yeah, if you do have any discussion topics for us, love to hear them. If you've got something you want to hear us talk about, that's an option there. But until next week, I hope you all have a good one. Jeremy, I hope you have a good one too. And we'll see you then.
I hope you don't have a good one.
You bastard.